Intro music.
No, wait, that's not it.
What? He's no good to me, Dad.
Intro music. Intro music.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Rob, I think we need at some point to get all the clips of us dancing to our own intro music, because you cut it out for the 4 people who watch our YouTube.
Right.
You cut it out because we have this great intro kind of sliced up thing that Rob made. But every time Rob and I do something silly, and I feel like the fans need to see it.
They need to see it.
One of these days, we got to have a director's cut, Bantha milk style, and just have all of our dance scenes out there. That's right. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Bantha Milk Podcast. Banter and Beskar and Bantha Milk.
All three.
Podcast.
We
How
sure
are. You,
are.
Rob?
I am wonderful. Welcome to 2021 as well.
2021. Yes, this is our first. I guess you would call this our first episode. 2020 or A 2020 after 2020. We got to figure out something for 2020 to mark it as a reset on the calendar.
Right. Yes. A reset on.
And Rob, I feel like every time we have a new episode, there's some new Star Wars knickknack behind you. I love it.
There is. There's a new one right over here. And the cool thing about this Star Wars knickknack, I started making little YouTube vignettes, I guess maybe little short YouTube clips, because, trying to build a little YouTube base there. And I'm calling them the Star Wars Spotlight Dance. And
right.
It's in reference to one of my favorite movies of the 80s, but I won't tell you which one. You'll have to figure that out. Maybe somebody out there knows it. So if you know it, subscribe, comment down below. Let us know what movie is Spotlight Dance from, and it's not Footloose. So I'm trying to do little 5-minute video clips, just something Star Wars related. Episode 1, I talked about our good friend who ran around carrying the ice cream maker under his arm.
That's right.
And then episode 2, I built the Lego Razor Crest back there, and it's all in fast forward timeline stuff. So you see,
obviously he built the end of season 2 version of the Razor Crest.
Yes,
I'd like to see the build on the after season 2 one day. I'd be very interested in that build.
So I wanted to then blow it up. Drop it from the second story window or something like that to make it really screen authentic.
How do you do it, though? How do you do that?
I can't. It was a Christmas gift. Yeah, it was 3 hours worth of work. It was a Christmas gift, and it wasn't the cheapest piece of Lego back there either. So,
hey, if you want to support Bantha Milk Podcast in our endeavors to be creatively realistic,
that's right.
Send us a Lego Razor Crest, and we will. On our YouTube channel, we will post a video of us building it together.
Yep.
And then maybe, I don't know, putting some C4 or something in.
There you go. And then blowing it up like they did in the movie, in the TV series.
Right there.
Right there.
That is your incentive. Go ahead and send us an email, something like that. Go ahead and send. We'll let you know where to send it, and we will make it authentic for you.
We will definitely.
Then,
that's right.
Until then, we are here, and I do actually have a little Bantha milk. You might have seen I was drinking a big old glass of vodka. No, that's just water. It's
just
very
water.
important to stay hydrated, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, it is.
But I do have just my trusty glass of bourbon here to get us through what is going to be a countdown. We are going to wrap up season 2 of The Mandalorian, and I got to tell you, I think they took what they did with season 1 and they punted that ball.
Yes, they did.
It's a very good one, right?
It was a very good season. All the way around, it was a great season. But right. Before we do that, we got a couple of house cleaning things we have to do. So, Nick, why don't you tell us all about our social meds?
Hey, if you're interested in more Star Wars info, want to chat, or even want to send us some Star Wars drink recipes, please be sure to check us out on all of our social medias platforms. You can catch us on Instagram and Facebook at Bantha Milk Podcast, Twitter at Bantha Milk. You can email us at banthamilkpodcast@gmail.com, or even check out our website, banthamilkpodcast.com.
And don't forget to check out our sister podcast over at the Earz-up Network. Our friends over at Earz-up help us a whole lot, so give them and their many shows a listen. Their shows include Earz-up, Earz-up in Depth, The Supreme Resort, and Scraping the Vault. Also be sure to check out their Patreon at patreon.com/ears with a Z up. For as little as $2 a month, you can help support our show. Any donations sent their way directly help us here at Bantha Milk Podcast and comes with great perks. So please check them out today.
You know, Rob, one of these days we're all going to be replaced by androids.
We will.
Saying. I was all set to talk to everyone about my social medias, and some robot did it for me.
Somebody
anyway,
sounding just like us did it for us.
Now you know how to go ahead and send us that Lego Razor Crest set.
That's right.
Get in touch, and we will blow that bad boy up.
We sure will.
But as we sip on our Bantha milk and we prepare to talk about Season 2 of The Mandalorian, I am sure that there is more going on in the Star Wars world than just The Mandalorian. And, I hear it's a pretty big news week just generally in the world, but I'm tired of world news. Maybe we can hear some news from out of this world.
Let's hear some news from somewhere else.
Star Wars news.
All right, so Nick, I have
news from a galaxy far, far away is going to depress us a lot less right now, Rob. So why don't you talk to me? Make me happy.
You are telling me, that is for sure. So I have two little news articles that I thought are pretty cool. The first one came from Disney Plus itself. So, we subscribe to it. Right out of
mouth, I guess.
From the mouse's mouth. That's right. So got an email from Disney Plus just letting you know the entire Star Wars collection, the timeline that it goes in. So in the email, they're basically promoting their own streaming channel, saying there's 15 stories from a galaxy far, far away that you can watch, and they went and showed us in order how you can watch them all. So it starts with The Phantom Menace, then Attack of the Clones, and then the Clone Wars, the cartoon movie, followed up by Revenge.
By the way, one of these days we need to do a breakdown of the Clone Wars cartoon movie, because it's one of the only movies in my life that I've walked out of the theaters on.
No way, really?
Oh, it was so bad. It was very bad.
It was pretty bad. We have that. We have the original holiday special we have to do as well, because
that's true. Yeah, we got a lot backed up here that we got for our fans, for our Patreon page that's coming.
That is coming, yes.
Probably, TBD.
Followed by Revenge of the Sith, Solo, Star Wars Rebels, Rogue One, and then the three originals, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And then this is where, it gets, I don't want to say blurry, but like they start adding a lot of stuff. The Mandalorian follows Return of the Jedi. Following The Mandalorian is when they say Star Wars Resistance took place, which we've talked about that a lot in comparison. And for some reason, I kept thinking that Star Wars Rebels also took place around the same time as The Mandalorian, because we've seen now so many characters from Rebels in The Mandalorian, but that actually took place before A New Hope. So, and when we talk about it, we always talk about how old Ahsoka is now in comparison to what she would have been, as well as the female Mandalorian,
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan, thank you. Because they were both in Rebels, which took place way before A New Hope did. And then you have the three greatest movies, A Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker at the end of that.
Now, to your point, there has been some discussion, and Dave Filoni kind of interjected himself into this discussion as to the timeline as well, because I think everyone just kind of assumed that the way we're seeing things is the way that they lined up. But there's a rumor that there's a time jump between the second to the penultimate and the ultimate scenes of Rebels, where they're saying that last scene of Rebels might be after The Mandalorian.
Okay.
Right? And so all of Rebels happens before The Mandalorian and before the original trilogy. And we all just kind of assumed that when Ahsoka was going off to find Ezra, it was right after that. But Dave Filoni kind of said that might not necessarily be the case. So we might be seeing Ahsoka in The Mandalorian and in her new series that we're going to see. And this might actually even be before the last scene that we see in Rebels. So I don't know that he definitely said that as that's going to be the case.
Okay.
But I think he at the very least put that out as a red herring for us to not think we know.
Right. Yes.
What's going on. I think that's fair for us to
because I did hear the same thing that he said, we're so used to everything being so linear that some of this is not necessarily as linear as we may think it is. So there is
the Star Wars tradition,
right?
Of course.
Yes, to go middle, then beginning, then end, all that good stuff.
To add to what you're talking about here, Rob, Star Wars did actually put out an official timeline that kind of lays out, because there was a big launch event this week for Star Wars: The High Republic. There's actually some kind of internet hullabaloo out there that says that Mark Hamill's involvement in the last episode of The Mandalorian might have taken the wind out of the sails a little bit for the High Republic launch event.
Okay.
Which, whatever. But yeah, so they have been talking about this new era of Star Wars that we're going to be seeing called the High Republic. And so there's been some information that came out about that this week. We've seen some comics, we've seen some books released, and they did release kind of like you said, this order, but it's almost like there are now these 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 big eras of Star Wars that we're going to see, and the very first of them is the High Republic era. And so this is set somewhere 300 to 400 years before the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and we're going to see a younger Yoda. We're going to see I would imagine the Jedi going into the height of their hubris, the height of their power. The next big era that they've listed is the Fall of the Jedi. And the Fall of the Jedi encompasses the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, and Revenge of the Sith. After that comes the Reign of the Empire, which includes the Bad Batch, which is the new Star Wars animated show coming out, and as well as Solo: A Star Wars Story. After that is the Age of Rebellion, right, which includes Rebels, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. After which we get the New Republic, which is the Mandalorian. That's the only thing we have kind of in that area right now before we get into our last, I guess you could call it big era of Star Wars, which is the Rise of the First Order, which is where we have the Resistance, the Force Awakens, the Last Jedi, and the Rise of Skywalker. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big time periods that have been introduced now, and it looks like now they're kind of working on the ones on the outside.
Okay.
We go the High Republic, the Fall of the Jedi, the Reign of the Empire, the Age of Rebellion, the New Republic, and the Rise of the First Order, right? And so they're really expanding this timeline out, which I'm really excited about, which means we're going to get to see all sorts of new content and new stories with new faces.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like that a lot. One other news that I have for you. Have you ever heard of, we've talked about this numerous times. Our good friend Jon Favreau.
Yeah,
our buddy, John. Johnny. Hey,
what a guy,
John.
that Johnny Fabs.
He is awesome. He has us over, once a week. We hang out, we watch TV, stuff like that.
He's actually downstairs watching the news with my wife.
There you go. That's awfully nice of him to do that.
They're talking politics and they're discussing life,
Yeah, I hear you.
Johnny Fabs.
Johnny Fabs. So we've talked about how he invites all of his friends they've all been in The Mandalorian. Anybody that we were like, oh, Jon Favreau worked with this guy on this movie, or he was with this guy in this movie, blah, blah, blah. So there's a new one of Jon Favreau's friends that looks like he's joining the Star Wars universe. Vince Vaughn.
Oh, yeah, they're going to do some swingers, man.
Do some swingers, yeah. It's going back to the original
That's right.
Jon Favreau movie. No, unfortunately, we haven't heard anything about Vince Vaughn yet, but I wouldn't put it past him. I would love to see.
Come on, Rob, you can't tease me like that.
I know, right? 6'6" Vince Vaughn just walking. Maybe he'll be in
He'll be the new Chewie.
I was going to say he'll be a new Chewie. He'll be in a Chewbacca suit, but not what are they? Not Ewoks. Oh my gosh, my mind. It's
Wookiee.
A Wookiee, thank you. Jeez.
It's a Wookiee.
You're letting me hang out there too. You let me throw the rod out there.
What happened is, because of this COVID craziness, we haven't been able to have a person on the same So like my internet cut out just for a second there. It was like the internet decided you need to do this on your own, Rob.
You need to struggle. The internet wanted me to struggle through the word right. Wookiee. Yes.
Anyway, so Vince Vaughn's not on board.
Maybe
who is on board?
His other good friend, Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr.
Now,
Rob,
week, I gotta ask you: are you happy about this?
See, I see what you did there. For those of you,
terrible, and I apologize. And if you just turned off the podcast, I don't know what to tell you at this point.
For those of you who have never heard of a Marvel movie ever. Jon Favreau's name in the Marvel movies is in fact Happy. So that's
Happy Hogan.
That's where Nick went with that one. So yes.
By the way, love me some Marvel. I've been watching a lot of Marvel movies since we've been working from home, because that's what you do when you're stuck at home is you watch movies, and when you have Disney Plus. So yeah, I am, and I think it's no surprise to anyone that they would try and get RDJ, considering he was what made. I mean, say what you will. I think he is what made the Marvel universe so successful.
100%.
Not only is he just outstanding, but it was his enthusiasm for everything. He's one of those guys that goes to hospitals and visits kids as Iron Man. He's he really embraced these roles, and he also used his power. Within these, I feel like these, you'll always find complaints and stuff, but I've heard some stories about him using this power of his sort of leverage over the creative process in helping his fellow cast members too.
Nice.
And so I don't know. He seems like a stand-up dude. He is a great actor, and I feel like he steals this show and everything he's in. He would make a great Star Wars character.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to be. I've seen some mock-up images of the potential for him being Thrawn?
Yeah, so the beginning of the week, it was just Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in Star Wars, and then everybody started speculating he's going to be in a spin-off show, he's going to be in a movie, he's going to be this, he's going to be that. By the end of the week now, it's that he's going to be Thrawn, so that'll be interesting.
I don't know. If that's true, and I don't put it past him to be able to pull off Thrawn. For those of you who did not watch Rebels, you need to go watch Rebels. I've said it a million times on this podcast. If you haven't listened to me by now, you're wrong. Go watch Rebels.
Go watch Rebels.
Thrawn is one of the coolest villains in Star Wars, hands down. I mean, forget about the fact that like he's cooler than lots of Sith, and he has no use of the Force. Like he's just a calculating, awesome dude.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me if I'm wrong. I think he's like a Terrascasi master, right? He's like one of the hand combat guys.
Yes.
But either way, he is awesome. But his whole thing is like calm, calculated, sort of not. And Robert Downey Jr. is this sarcastic, smug guy. So I feel like if they cast him in this role, it would be a very big departure for him artistically, and I don't think he couldn't do it. I think it would be one of those roles that like redefined him as an actor.
Sure.
Which could be kind of cool.
And it would also be good because, I mean, he's played Iron Man for 10 years or so. So
I was a senior in high school, so 15 plus.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've known him as Iron Man and as that smug, egotistical, type of character. So it would be really cool to see him not play that same character again.
Sure.
So I'm sure.
And if they're going to bring in someone to be Thrawn, I don't want Thrawn to be a throwaway character.
Right.
Thrawn is the sort of villain that needs to be consequential.
Yes.
He's not a. Well, I feel like I get the feeling that Giancarlo Esposito's Moff Gideon is a Mandalorian bad guy. I don't want RDJ to be a bad guy he needs to be an overarching. Like Thrawn needs to be a villain that is like on level of Darth Vader or on level of, any one of these Sith that people know of, or Captain Phasma. I guess she was over 3 movies and she was kind of lame.
Yeah.
They really hyped her up, but this is a character that needs some, I think, some delicate handling, and I really hope they give him the treatment.
Yeah, and I think if he watches Rebels at all and sees how this character was portrayed in Rebels, I think he can pull it off greatly, and I think he'll be a great. And the character itself is such a powerful character that if he plays it right, they could easily throw him in the Bo-Katan series. He could come over and even over top of Giancarlo Esposito in The Mandalorian, or even in another movie somewhere else. So they could definitely get him to go in multiple places because he's such a high-ranking official and such an important official that he definitely could be a super villain.
And just another kind of, for those of you who don't know anything about Thrawn, I think the choice of Robert Downey Jr. would be perfect for him because he's really good at playing imperfect characters.
Yeah.
And not to say that Thrawn doesn't have precision and stuff, but the whole point of Thrawn is he's this chiss, and chiss are these blue. They look humanoid enough, and the whole thing with the Empire and with Star Wars that if you don't watch some of the stuff that is in the movies you might miss is that they're extraordinarily racist. right? The Empire likes humanoids, right? And so like all throughout the Empire's reign, if you're not a human, you don't look like someone from Earth, you're discriminated against. And so here's this Chiss, and Chiss are humanoid enough looking, but they're blue.
They're very blue.
Completely blue. Their
red eyes.
Pretty red.
Yeah.
And so he's an alien, and that's considered in the Empire to be not so good. You're looked down on as a lesser thing. And here's this Chiss that, despite this, becomes this enormously high-ranking. I mean, think about all the movies that we've seen. Have we ever seen a ranking member of the Empire that is not a humanoid? I don't think so.
No, not even a little bit.
We see in some of the extended media, we see some aliens as Sith and stuff like that, but not in the Empire really. So here's this alien creature who is like, again, this Chiss who's kind of mysterious, and he rose through the ranks despite all this. So I think it'd be really cool. We'll see what they do with it, but I think if they're going to use a high-profile character or actor like Robert Downey Jr., it needs to be a consequential character. So,
yeah. Yep, I agree. So that's it for the news that I have. Do you have any other news?
Hey, me too. That's it for our Star Wars news.
So that's Star Wars news.
Star Wars news.
All right, there we go.
That, it always reminds me of like an old school AM like talk show. My dad used to listen to AM talk shows all the time when I was a kid, and we just get those ding 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 ding. That's great.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks.
Well,
big shout out to Brian for
yes, to Brian
us.
for doing that for us. He did a great job, and it's a fun
Yes,
little whatever they call them. I forget what they call it.
That's I don't know. We don't need to know
because
we're here to podcast about Star Wars. He was
That's
there
right.
to write our jingles.
Right,
we are
jingles
here
for us.
now to talk about The Mandalorian. We just finished season 2. We wrapped up season 2, and we've made our little tradition. This is our second year here, so it's been our tradition at the end of the season to chat about, go back, talk about the overarching sort of themes of the season, and give our ranking of our episodes, the least liked to most liked, because people really love lists.
They love lists. People love lists, and here's a list for you. It can't be our top 10. People like top 10s. There's only 8 episodes.
Can we add to like random episodes from another sitcom?
From anything else? Number 10, that one episode of Three's Company where Jack Tripper fell down. That's just
Number 9, the season 6 of Frasier.
There we go. All right, that's it. And now we're into the 8 important episodes.
That's right. Three's Company and Frasier taking up the 70s and 80s sitcoms. Apparently.
There you go. Boom. Done.
Here we are.
All right.
Yeah, so let's just talk really quickly, kind of give us an overarching theme of our season 2, because we started season 2 sort of on a cliff of what happens next with Grogu. We didn't know Grogu's name yet.
Nope. We still were called. We didn't even know his name was Norman yet.
Not
at
even.
That point in time.
We were still calling him
the child.
The child.
Yeah.
Or else, what do we call him? Udall.
We were calling him Udall back then. Yeah.
We like to change pretty much everything on this podcast.
That's right.
When it comes to anything. But
we make it our own. Yeah.
So he starts off, and it's basically the armorer says you gotta take Grogu home, right? And
you gotta take him back
where home is. But we got to take him to the Jedi.
So Kyle knows that he needs to find some Jedi, and the way to find some Jedi is to find other Mandalorians.
More Mandalorians, that's right.
And then other Mandalorians can help him find the Jedi. So that was basically the overarching storyline of this season, was that Kyle needs to get Norman back to his own kind, either other Yoda-like creatures, which Yoda creature doesn't have a name. Am I?
Yeah, we still, again, we have had mention of the fact that there's been, which is weird because Ahsoka said I knew only one other type of this creature, but again, we know that, and we talked last season about the fact that they've been making sort of a big deal in Star Wars about Yaddle. The other of the creature of whatever Yoda is. They mentioned Yaddle in Star Wars Fallen Order. And we thought for sure, well, this must be Yoda and Yaddle's love child, right?
Yes, but now
no mention of Yaddle.
No mention of Yaddle at all. So
yet another one of our predictions tossed out the window.
Tossed out the window, right out the drain. So
I'm not calling it out yet, though. It could still happen.
Maybe season 3, we run into Yaddle.
That's
so
right.
So basically 8 episodes long of Norman trying to find his people, but in the process we have some bad guys who come in because they want Yaddle still. Or not Yaddle.
Mandalorian politics this
Yes.
season too, which I love. I hope we get more of that next season between views on what is Mandalorian, conflicting views, right? Because we have on one hand Kyle's kind of upbringing in this cult, and then we encounter our first Mandalorians outside of this cult. They take their helmets off, challenges Kyle's beliefs of who he is and what it is to be a Mandalorian. And yet these Mandalorians have their own stigmas and prejudices as to what it means to be a Mandalorian. So again, philosophical discussion about what it means to be a Mandalorian. It's good stuff.
And even some contradictions within themselves. Boba Fett at one point says he's Mandalorian, and then in the next episode they say he's not a Mandalorian.
Yeah, and he's like, it's fine.
Okay, yeah, sure, I'm not a Mandalorian, whatever. Yeah. So a little confusion there. But yeah, so and a lot of parenthood overlying aspect. Kyle becoming more and more attached to baby Yoda, to little Norman there.
And vice versa.
And then them actually becoming a family versus just a quest. And
it's funny because I've been watching. My mother-in-law did not watch the Mandalorian, and she's a big Star Wars fan. So we've been when she came over the holidays, and we kind of showed her some of it. And I hadn't watched the first season in a while, and it's remarkable to see the difference in the way that Din Djarin handles Grogu. In the first season, like the first episode or so, he grabs him by the collar of his like
bag jacket
and like lifts him up like a cat.
Okay,
like he scruffs him like he's a cat and drops him in his. In the second season, he picks him up like he's his little baby.
Like he's his baby. Time. Yeah, he's like cuddling him and not caressing, but like being more careful with him and taking care of him more.
It is really interesting to see that. Yeah. Not only did they make that a part of the show, but they did that little nuanced sort of ways of showing that growth of character development and relationship.
And I think the biggest character development was in that 15-minute arc with our good old friend the comedian.
Oh yeah, Bill Burr.
Bill Burr, when he in the one episode
Mayfield, right?
Mayfield, in the one episode he has such an epiphany to how bad the Empire is and what he needs to do now. He did a better job of that in one 15-minute segment than they did in the entire last three movies with Finn. It took Finn three movies.
Yeah. And that was a testament to Bill Burr's acting too. You know, a lot of times comedians, you kind of figure they can be funny, they don't have to be actors. But man, can Bill Burr act? Like,
yeah,
acting is all like, people think that acting is dialogue and acting is kind of delivery of lines. But acting, if you talk to many trained actors, they tell you that acting is in the eyes. And if you watch the facial expressions of his character during that, and I guess we can talk about it when we talk about that episode, but if you watch his facial reactions and the slight sort of ticks, and man, he really kills that sort of, you can see him ticking and ticking until you see him snap, and all of a sudden,
and when he snapped all the way. So and it was great because it was what you wanted to see, especially for that whole episode, because in the beginning you're almost rooting for the Empire because they're the pilots, flying the thing in, so you're kind of rooting for the Empire to save the day, and then at the end you're like, oh yeah, we hate the Empire, like it was great.
And they even when they get in and they get out of that they get out of the truck basically, and like all their buddies start like clapping them on the back and cheering, and it's like they're standing there like, we're here to kill you all.
Yeah.
Y'all are like high-fiving me and like slapping me on the butt, but
you have no clue.
I'm gonna kill every single one of you.
I hate you all. So
yeah,
all right.
Interesting moral complications there, but we are going to start right now.
Let's
with
go.
Our number 8 on the list, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, Rob. We have this one. The same one.
We have this one exactly the same. Right? I guarantee.
Now, Rob and I are notorious for not talking about what we want to talk about before we get into, because we want this to be a talk. It's banter.
Yes,
that's the first word in the title, right? So we don't want to spoil. We don't want to waste the good stuff before we get on
right. We don't want to have to reenact it
right
yep.
here,
So
I just want to make sure None of this is rehearsed. I have not revealed to Rob my list. He has not revealed to mine. On 3, I would just like you to tell me your least favorite of the entire series. 1, 2, 3. The Jedi.
Passenger. Oh, look at you. You tricked me.
So it is obviously The Passenger. Right?
Yes.
Let's talk about The Passenger briefly.
Do we have to? All right. Basically, Here we go. And
again, we were apologists for The Passenger all season. We were wait. Last episode, it's all going to tie.
It's got to come back. It's got to come back together
Frog
somewhere.
Lady's going to save the day. And I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And you know what's even the worst part about it was I watched and I think I even talked about it on the last episode as well. I watched the Disney Plus behind the scenes for season 2. When they did the behind the scenes of season 1, it was like 8 episodes long because they talked about everything in such detail. Season 2 was a one hour thing. They were interviewing the director of episode 2, and he was talking about how deep this person is and how this and how that and how Jon Favreau wanted an ice planet, but they wanted it to be different than every other ice planet that they've been on. And, really trying to sell how great this episode was. Not buying it. Sorry. It was the worst episode.
They completely left this episode out, and I don't understand how it would have changed anything.
It wouldn't have changed anything without it being there. The only thing that would have happened differently is he would have left episode 1 and landed on the planet for episode
3. Yeah, that's it. Nothing of consequence happened except his ship got kind of a little more messed up.
A little messed up. There was another sighting of X-Wing pilots saving the day, but even when they saved the day, they didn't save the day. They blew up the spider,
and left.
His ship was a
You're
mess.
On your own.
And then they left him there. They're like, "You're an outlaw. We saved you, but we're gonna let you die here now. So have a nice day."
Again, I maybe in season 3 we'll see Frog Lady again, and it'll all make sense.
I doubt it.
I will say. Number 7 through 1, I think were amazing episodes.
Yes.
I'm not complaining about, number 7 on my list is number 7 because number 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 were so great. Number 8, I could have left The Passenger off this
easily.
Completely, and I would have been. Now, I understand maybe they were trying to introduce some horror elements into everything.
Right. This was supposed to be the horror episode because they were all being chased by the spiders and everything like that. So
I think it's best for everyone if we move on from this episode and leave it behind.
But
let's move on to number 7.
Real fast, the director's name was Peyton Reed. I hope they give him another episode to direct something better than this one.
Something to redeem himself.
Yeah, something to redeem himself. So, all right. So
moving on to number 7. All right, because again, like I just said, Rob, every single one of these it's going to be tough. I don't know that we're going to line up that well because I think every episode was great. I agree. Our top couple will be pretty close.
Yes,
but it was really a toss up. So what do you have for number 7?
For me, for number 7, I have season 2, episode 4, The Siege.
I do too.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Wow, nice. All right, so we're 2 for 2. So
2 for 2, and it's not because it was a bad episode.
No,
not even a little bit. It was a good episode. When it came out, I was very excited for it. I probably watched it 5 or 6 times. I thought
loved it. The reason I loved it, and it wasn't necessarily because of all the action that happened on screen, because the action that happened on screen was cool, but I thought it was great because it explained stuff. It gave us context for the movies.
Yep.
It tied in sort of the plot line we have. It gave us some of the, this is a cloning facility. Clearly, the Empire and its remnants are up to something no good to do something, and obviously that ties into Palpatine coming back in the movies, and I think that's awesome.
Yes.
I don't necessarily know. There was nothing, I don't think, that blew my mind this episode, but I thought it was a solid, awesome episode.
And it got the band back together.
Right, and it was directed by Carl Weathers.
It was directed by Carl Weathers.
We got to see Gina Carano again.
Yep.
It reintroduced old characters.
It brought back Horatio Sands as the Mithril.
Yes,
we get to see him again.
Episode 1, he was one of the first characters we were introduced to. I was a big, and it did kind of reintroduce us to Navarro and kind of show us it's been resettled. It's kind of an upstanding part of the New Republic now. Gina Carano's this deputy. So
it was a good episode.
Not a bad episode, but again, it's just all of these are great episodes.
Yes, and it was just slightly less better than the one above it. And for you, go ahead, tell me your number 6, and then I'll see if I agree with you.
Number 6, I had Chapter 9, The Marshal.
Oh yeah, the Marshal. I wrote the Outlaw for some reason, but yes, me too. I have the Marshal.
Okay,
it's at number 6 as well.
Episode 1.
Season 2,
The
episode
Marshal.
1.
Great.
Yep.
All right, man. We are okay. So that's 3 for 3 so far.
Yep.
So again, this was a great episode.
It was a great episode. It was fun seeing Timothy Olyphant pretend that he's Boba Fett.
He was a cosplayer.
He was a cosplayer. It was fun.
He was an effective cosplayer.
He was.
He knew how to use the armor.
He did. He knew what to do with the armor. It made him look cool.
We finally got our on-screen presentation of an alive Krayt Dragon.
Yes.
Right. So
very cool.
That was great to see the sort of the power that Krayt Dragon had. We've been wondering since 1977, since we saw this random skeleton scattered on the wastelands of Tatooine. Look at this big, fearsome creature. It must have been great. So we got to see what that looks like on screen, which is awesome.
So it's funny because, I've mentioned numerous times that I'm still playing the Star Wars Galaxies game. Sure. And in Star Wars Galaxies, when you go to Tatooine, you can kill Krayt Dragons in Star Wars Galaxies. They're much different than this Krayt Dragon, which I found interesting. They've done the same thing with blurgs as well. Like the blurgs that we've seen in this episode go along with the blurgs from the cartoon from I think it's in Rebels.
Right.
But in Star Wars Galaxies, there's blurgs in there that look completely different than the blurgs that we saw on television. So It was cool hearing Krayt Dragon, and then I thought we were going to see what looked like the Krayt Dragons from Star Wars Galaxies. Star Wars Galaxies Krayt Dragons are just basically giant bearded dragons. Yeah. This one was much cooler. It was like an homage to Jaws, this episode, because there was a lot of like scenes that were very similar to Jaws scenes. They almost had the same line, like we need a bigger boat. I was waiting to hear that.
Yeah.
This one was directed by Jon Favreau. You could tell because you could tell he wanted to direct this one because it was the first one of the new season. So it was cool. It was a good episode. I was hoping that maybe we would see Timothy Olyphant in the big finale again.
Yeah, again, we were really convinced that after season 1, we figured out the formula.
Yeah.
Right? We were introduced to a ragtag band of scoundrels throughout the season, and then the last season, there's a big fight, and we're reunited with them, and it's this big, happy adventure, and thankfully, we're wrong.
Yeah,
that's not the way it went, and
nope.
I'm really glad it's not formulaic. I love being wrong.
Yes.
We thought that Timothy Olyphant and Frog Lady and Bo-Katan and Ahsoka were all gonna storm Starkiller Base.
That's right.
And infiltrate everything at the. So it didn't happen that way, and I'm glad it didn't happen that way.
Right.
But again, I'm not sure why they would have dropped such a big ticket salary.
Right.
On a guy like Timothy Olyphant for one episode, unless we're going to see him again.
Which we could.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him in the Book of Boba Fett because, again, there's definitely some unresolved stuff with Boba Fett here. We don't know why Boba Fett knew that this random marshal on Tatooine had his armor and he never went and got it from him. So I'd imagine there's a story there. We'll find out at some point, but we don't know what that is right now.
Yeah, so maybe we'll see him again. Maybe we'll just see Boba Fett be really cool in his own spin-off series, which, by the way, it has, we don't need to say it, but I just want to because I want to be the one to say the news 2 months later. But the Boba Fett series will be a completely separate series from the other series. So that is good.
There was some worry when it came out that we were seeing the end of The Mandalorian and it would pick a story up in the Book of Boba Fett. But they came out, and we mentioned it, I think, the episode after it came out. I think I said, no, I'm pretty sure this is, and that's proved to be the case, where The Mandalorian is going to continue on and we're going to see Boba Fett pick up his own story, which is great.
Yes.
It's perfect. I mean, Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand, and Boba Fett. I mean, they're great characters.
Yes.
They proved this season that they can handle this iconic character in a really awesome way.
Yeah, they totally did.
And so I'm excited to see Boba Fett kind of take up the mantle that Maul had earlier in all these series, and maybe we'll see him continue that sort of dark but. Again, Maul has always been this dark character, but we saw this quasi-redemption arc in him.
Yes.
In Rebels, which wasn't a redemption arc, but it was a quasi-redemption arc. So again, I could see the Boba Fett treatment being similar.
Because Maul went from a bad guy to he's not a bad guy, but he's not a good guy, but he's just not even out for himself. He's just out for redemption. He's out for revenge. Yeah. And he's neither side. And I can see Boba Fett being the same way now, where, there's no empire per se for him to work for. He's just making sure he's taking care of himself. So Boba Fett's going to be out for Boba Fett for #1 right now. Yeah, and it'll be cool.
There was some stuff that came out after after the season where Boba Fett's armor got this paint job and got revitalized. And they changed some of the colors, and there's some graphics out there that show that, like, beforehand, these colors. And I guess I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. When it comes down to it, I would say there are people who know way more about Star Wars than me. But when it comes to Star Wars knowledge, I'm definitely in the top 1%. There's a whole lot of people out there who like Star Wars, but there are people out there who know way more than me, I guess, because I guess all the colors on Mandalorian armor have specific meanings.
Yes, I read that article also. I was shocked.
When they repainted, there are some sort of
it was like golds to reds.
Yeah, golds to reds, and these highlights mean things. Like one was a revenge sort of feeling, and now that he's got this red on his armor, it's an honor. He's honoring his tradition. He's honoring his father. He's honoring his heritage. So again, Boba Fett is this character that is not a good guy, not a bad guy, but he's a man in the universe making his way, right? And so I think we're going to see him make his way in whatever way that's going to be.
I think it's going to be really, really cool, and I'm very excited about it. Very, very excited about it. All right, now, this middle section here, I think, is where it'll definitely get interesting for us.
It'll divert for sure. So what do you have next, my friend?
Because these top 5 could go in any particular order, I think. But I have the Heiress, Season 2, Episode 3. The Heiress.
Me too.
I have her next. Excellent.
Me too. Look so at that, far, man. We're right on target.
We have
Stay on target.
Stay on target.
Stay on target.
So I thought it was cool. I thought it was great for the introduction of Bo-Katan.
Again, this was an episode for Star Wars fans, right? Mm-hmm. This was like a love letter to the people who don't just watch the movies, right? With the people who are invested in the animated series, in the books, in the expanded universe. This was saying, hey, we realize that this is something that loads of people watch, but specifically those people who are really plugged in, this one's for you.
Yeah. Yep. And I definitely, going into the season, figuring out that he's going to be on this mission and, he has to go find other Mandalorians. Bo-Katan is the Mandalorian from Rebels that you want to go find. So I was really hoping to see her. So it was really cool that they did.
And it was great that they used Katie Sackhoff, who was the voice of Bo-Katan during Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yeah.
I just started watching this week Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if you watch Avatar at all.
I watched half of the first season. My son did watch all of it, and he was raving about how good it is. Yeah,
it's great. Man. Yeah, and Dave Filoni is the director.
Yep.
And I've had friends telling me for years to watch this, and I just haven't had the chance. And I finished the first season in 3 days. It's outstanding, and it's the same sort of storytelling. Everything matters. We have things. We have interweaving storylines. Dave Filoni knows how to write and direct.
He sure does.
Good drama and good fantasy.
Yes.
And that's what Avatar: The Last Airbender is. If you've never seen it, go check it out.
Go check it out. It's really good.
That's what all of what Dave Filoni has done is, and it's great to see it in here anyway. But yeah, so again, just the inclusion of Clone Wars and Rebels fans, and sort of it's giving the Empire a Hail Hydra sort of a feel. We talked about that when it came out. It's like this cult of personality that it became once they fell.
Yes. Yeah, so that was a really good one. So I like that a lot. Now we're up to...
Top four.
So number 4, I'll go first. I picked The Tragedy, Season 2, Episode 6.
All right, talk to me about it, because I actually picked The Believer,
okay.
Season 2, Episode 7.
Wow, okay. So finally, it took us 4 episodes in to finally get a difference in opinion here.
Yes, why don't you talk about The Tragedy?
I will talk about The Tragedy. I liked it a lot. I loved... This was Boba Fett's coming out party.
Yes.
It was really, really cool. And if you watch the behind the scenes episode about Season 2, Robert Rodriguez, the director, has a whole big thing about when he got picked to do this and they gave him the script and he read the script. Boba Fett's fight scene in the script was only 3 pages, which if you know anything about script writing, 1 page equals 1 minute of scene. He turned that 3 pages into a 9-minute fight scene. And what he showed on the behind the scenes thing, he had his 2 kids dress up in Halloween costumes. One is a Boba Fett and one is like a stormtrooper. And in his backyard, because they were quarantined, so in his backyard, he had these 2 kids acting. He's recording them. He had little action figures to show like the spinning, like everybody like getting blown up, and this guy doing this and this guy doing that. So he made his own like little mini movie to show Jon Favreau, this is what I want to do. Okay. I know you only have this listed for 3 minutes. This is how I want to shoot it. And Jon Favreau loved it. He was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Do it. And it really, really, I think it made Boba Fett so much more powerful because we've always known him to be the greatest bounty hunter, but we never saw him do anything. The only thing we saw was him fall into the Sarlacc pit. Yep. We didn't see him do anything. So now we finally saw him do something.
Yep. And again, I actually had the tragedy listed one above you, and I understand why you might put the Believer above it. Honestly, or where I understand, again, we talked at the beginning of this why all of these are interchangeable, but speaking specifically on the tragedy, I had this listed at number 3.
Okay.
I could have had it listed at number 2 or number 1. Honestly, I think that the top 3 were just so interchangeable. But for me, as someone growing up with Boba Fett being, there are so many of us with Boba Fett. We built Boba Fett up to be this amazing thing. And again, most of it was the expanded universe and our imaginations. But they finally codified it. This is evidence. We have evidence right here. Look at this. Mm-hmm. And they could, again, it's happened before where we have been given this setup. They could have dropped the ball drastically, and they did it exactly right. And they built Boba Fett into, and they made him such an interesting fighter and powerhouse character.
Even with his dad bod.
Even with the dad bod. They used it to make it better, I think, because
he was able to use his weight for more strength and to make it more powerful that way.
Exactly, and that's how they made him a different sort of badass than let's say Kyle, because I see Din Djarin as like almost like, I don't know, like the same way in a Jedi is. They're agile, they're fast. They have all the, and we see Din using this staff, and it's a very delicate sort of weapon. It's almost, when we talk about a lightsaber, a more a more elegant weapon from more civilized age. That's sort of what I get from Din Djarin. He's very precise. Boba Fett, his fighting style is pure barbarism.
Yes.
He has the gaffy stick. Mm-hmm. He throws on that Boba Fett armor, and he's still Boba Fett, but he's got this nomadic sort of wild fighting style to him where it's not polished. It's just raw and awesome.
Yeah.
And they turned him into this primal force that I would not have been able to imagine as a kid growing up.
No.
It outlived my expectations.
Yes, I agree 100%. The only reason I put it in number 4 is because I think the 3 above it are just that much better. I don't think...
And again, I don't fault you at all. Right?
Yeah.
Because my number 4... was actually The Believer. I don't know what you had The Believer at, but I'm going to hop on The Believer now because it's a great episode. It's my number 4. And I think what carries The Believer is Bill Burr's performance.
Which is why I ranked it higher, is because of Bill Burr's performance and because of Bill Burr's coming-of-age moment.
Sure.
The story was so important to see him go from drinking the juice, drinking the Empire juice, right? And you, like you said, with his acting, and you just see his eyes when he, hey, remember when we stormed that and all these people died and stuff, and they were heroes. Yeah, I remember. Bam, and you just see he's like, you know what? You are a jerk
Well,
because we're keeping this PC. You are not a nice person. I hate you, and I'm going to kill you now.
And the way they did it was great too, because I mean, Rob, you've known me for a little while now. You might now know that I'm a fairly sarcastic individual,
Right.
And it's a pretty common knowledge thing that sarcastic individuals often use sarcasm and humor as a defense mechanism, right? And so again, this is psychology. This is a study on a character. You know, we have this character that we were introduced to in season 1 that could have been this three-dimensional, wisecracking, he's here for the good times and the jokes.
Yeah.
And they could have left it at that, and we'd never see him again, and he would have been a fine character. But they brought him back, and they humanized him, and they developed him in a way that can't be done in a simple show. This is a character that is flawed, that has these psychological tics and these wisecracking things, because apparently he went through some stuff.
He went through some stuff. He sure did.
And you see him joking, and you see him making light of this, and then he starts to kind of get a little more serious, and he gets a little more philosophical, and then all of a sudden, like you said, you see the lights change.
Yep.
You see the twinge happen. You see the veins start to throb a little bit. You see the eyes start to twitch, and it's done.
And you see, to the whatever the guy was, general or whatever he was, all the people that died meant nothing to him. But to Bill Burr, they were his friends, and his friends had families, and they were people. They weren't just pogs on a chess match. They were people, and Bill Burr's character is why I actually ranked it number 2. The Believer, because of how deep he was. Now, I thought it was funny that they let him go onto this planet that with no money, no clothes, no anything. Now, what's he going to do now? But who knows? Maybe in season 3, we'll see him wandering around the galaxy with something else. He's hitchhiking. He's got a stick with a bag, over his shoulder and his thumb out somewhere, trying to get a ride somewhere. But yeah. So I really liked what they did with the Bill Burr character, with the Mayfield character in that episode. So
now you had that listed at number 2, which obviously means that the next 2, we have the same next 2 here for whether 1 or 3 here. But my number 2 was the Jedi,
which is my number 3.
Was your number 3.
Yes,
I can only assume, right? And now the reason I had the Jedi again, the Jedi and the tragedy were my that was my toss up. Because it's my 2 favorite Star Wars characters, Ahsoka Tano and Boba Fett. Mm-hmm. And Boba Fett has been my favorite Star Wars character since I was a kid.
Yep.
And it was this blank, empty slate that needed to be filled. And Ahsoka Tano has been my favorite Star Wars character for the past couple years, because they've just been taking this character and building her and making her amazing.
Yes.
And so the decision for me was, did the rise of Boba Fett and his hype and how they handled him, did that outweigh how amazing that Ahsoka episode was for me? And I didn't think it was. Not that it wasn't great, but not only did I love what they did with Ahsoka, one of my favorite Star Wars characters, but the art direction of that episode, the Kurosawa,
the way it was very Japanese
sort of
Kurosawa
style,
film, with the wind blowing everywhere, her cape blowing.
It was beautiful.
The one scene you talked about where she was up on top of the building and Mando was down at the bottom, and it was the tank and the Jedi just being together, and the stylization of it was amazing. The fighting in it was really good, and I even talked when we watched the episode, the bad, I forget what her name was, but the bad woman in charge that had the giant sword fight with Ahsoka. She was a trained martial artist, and she came from a big martial art family.
That was Morgan Elsbeth, by the way. Magistrate Elsbeth.
Yes. So she came from a huge karate family, martial art family.
She is
Diana Lee
Inosanto.
Yes, you say it.
Her father is Dan Inosanto. She's married to fellow martial artist Ron Balicki, according to Wikipedia.
And her
uncle, I believe, was Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee, yeah. So she was a martial artist. So just having those 2 women doing the martial arts in the Japanese style house with the little pond below it, and on the little wooden deck and everything. Like, it was amazing. So yes, and like, I agree with you 100%. Ahsoka wasn't a kid for when I was a kid. She wasn't there, but I did love watching her story arc grow from Snips all the way up to her fight within herself that she didn't want to be a Jedi, and leaving, and then coming back at the last season of the Clone Wars, and how they respected her for her thought process and her willpower and everything like that. So it was really cool.
You mentioned Snips too, and again, I don't think you can mention this episode without mentioning Rosario Dawson's performance, because it was awesome. You saw Snips. Yeah, it's clear that she watched Clone Wars, and she figured out who this character was, because you saw flashes. You did see this mature, not Jedi, because she's distinctly not a Jedi, but she's very clearly a wise, powerful Force user. Yep. Who's been around for years and years, and so probably one of the more powerful Force users in the galaxy at this point. But she also, you see these flashes of this sarcasm and this sort of like this childlike whimsy in her that is so very Snips-like.
Yes, very Snips-like, yes. Yeah. So she did a great job. Rosario Dawson did a great job, and I'm glad she did such a good job, because I'm sure they went into her telling her that, our plan is to have a spin-off series of this, and, if you crush this is going to be amazing for you.
I'm excited for it.
And I'm very excited for it, yes.
For sure. Which, of course, leaves us with the number one episode for both of us, which has got to be Chapter 16, The Rescue.
Yes, has to be. I mean
forget about anything that happens in the first 15 minutes of the episode. The last scene alone seals the deal for me. My wife, who has been a frequent guest and collaborator on this show, was bawling her eyes out during this scene. It was just so emotional finally seeing this character that we've grown to love for however many years you've been alive, right? Because he's been around for most of some of our lives, right?
Yes.
And we've just been waiting for Star Wars to show us what Luke Skywalker had become. We wanted to see Master Skywalker.
We didn't want to see old man Grumpy Skywalker. No. We wanted to see Master Skywalker. And you saw the battle droids and how hard it was for Mando to fight one of them, because they were specifically designed to resist, kinetic and blaster power and stuff like that. There's no normal person is going to be able to beat these droids. We're not going to protect them against Jedi because there's no Jedi out there, so why waste all our time and effort on that? And then just watching Luke Skywalker, which even the way they did it with, you just see the black cape, and you're like, oh, that's got to be Luke. But then you're like,
the tiny, you're right. It was the tiny things. It was like X-wing. That's Luke, of course.
That's Luke.
There's still some doubt.
Yeah, and then you're like, but maybe it's Ahsoka, because you still didn't see her head, and she did have a black cape on in the last episode when we saw her, and she has worn black robes as well. So you're like, oh, it's Luke, but it could be Ahsoka, or maybe it's somebody else. And then you're like, oh, and then you just see him slowly, methodically walking through, and then you're like, oh, that's got to be Luke. And then the green lightsaber comes out, and you're like, if that's not Luke, then I'm going to be really angry at this point. And then he just slices through those droids like butter. Oh, yeah. And you're like butter. And you're just like, yep. Now, funny thing about this episode, guess who directed it?
Tell me.
Peyton Reed.
Peyton Reed?
Yep.
Get out of here.
I swear to God. Chapter 16, directed by Peyton Reed. Wow. So they did give him his redemption episode.
All right.
After they give him episode 2, they're like, look, we're going to give you the worst episode of the season and the best episode of the season. So,
that's a fair trade-off.
It is a fair trade-off.
To all you on my YouTube channel, you're getting to see my cat in action right now.
Yep, so you can watch Nick's cat sit in his lap. So there we go. So,
that's right.
So I'm very
The Rescue, number one for sure. If for nothing else, for finally seeing Master Luke Skywalker. But again, it also sets up some great stuff. It sets up some really interesting Mandalorian politics for season 3. Who's the leader? Bo-Katan can't just take the Darksaber, so Kyle's got the Darksaber. It's going to set up some interesting drama and tension between protagonists.
There was a tweet out there that said, "Oh, just simple. Bo-Katan marries Kyle, and then she can be." There you go. So
maybe they can cut the Darksaber in half, and one person can get the left side and one can get the right side.
There you go. It's going to be hard to hold, though. You have to be very careful that you're holding the side that doesn't have the...
Teamwork makes the dream work, Rob.
That's right. There you go. They'll just hold it together. So
that's right. And they can hold hands, and they'll realize at the end of the day that it was the friendships they made along the way that mattered all along.
Mattered all along. So we have that. We also have Luke taking Grogu to train him. So
and one day get killed by Ben Solo.
Maybe.
Supposedly. We'll see.
He killed everybody, but
I'd be willing to say we're going to see Grogu in The Mandalorian again.
Yes. I mean, gosh, he's like the number
Maybe he'll
one.
get a little more training under him. Like in the last season, last episode, there's going to be one final scene where it's very clear that Din Djarin's about to die, and a more trained Grogu, lightsaber in hand, saves the day.
Would be amazing. It would have to be a little lightsaber, though.
Yeah, well, Yoda had a little lightsaber.
Yoda did have a little lightsaber. This would be a really... Speaking... Oh, never mind. On the Lego Razor Crest that I have, they have a Baby Yoda in it. Now, if you know anything about Legos, Baby Yoda, his footprint is one Lego brick.
Okay.
He is the smallest little thing. Like, he goes over the hand of the Lego person. Like, that's it. That's how big he is. He's so tiny that he just fits right over the hand.
I love it.
I can guarantee whoever has one of these and doesn't just have it on display, the Baby Yoda is lost already.
Gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, for sure.
It is for sure gone. So if you have it and your kid is playing with it, kiss that Baby Yoda goodbye because that thing is super tiny.
That's right.
But yeah.
But we've made it. We made it to the top of our list. We've rounded out these season 2 of
awesome.
The Mandalorian. 16 episodes in. And I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yep, I agree 100%.
And it's literally the only show that I have a podcast about.
That's right. That is the truth.
That says something, right?
That does say something.
Right? So here we are at the end of our list here. There, Yoda, that's a great shirt.
See?
Man.
And then at the bottom it says teacher. My wife got this for me. It says Yoda best teacher. And there's
I love it.
Yoda on there with a little lightsaber.
You know what, Rob? You are the best teacher.
Yoda best podcaster about
That's right.
about the Mandalorian.
Oh, thanks, bud. Well, we're so glad to be able to do this for you. We are not going to stop the party here.
Nope.
Right, as we did last year at the end of the season, we're going to keep talking Star Wars. Even if the Mandalorian content is not out there, you can expect some more content from us at least 2 or 3 times a month coming at you until season 3 comes out, which I guess is going to be the end of December, but who knows? Maybe we'll get more High Republic stuff before then. Maybe the Book of Boba Fett. We're going to have a lot to talk about pretty soon.
We will, because they've announced 1,000 new shows, so we'll have plenty of things to talk about. So
let's make sure you catch us wherever you get your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any drink recipes, you send them to us at banthemillpodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out. We're not on Parler, so don't check us out on Parler.
Don't check us out.
But check us out pretty much anywhere else. And that's about it. That's all we got for season 2. We wrapped
it up. That is for
sure.
So
I finished my Bantha milk for the day. So I guess that means we're done.
We are done. So take us out, Nick.
Yeah. So from all of us here at Bantha Milk Podcast headquarters, we have spoken.
We have spoken.